And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to EU League. We go on to game number 2, map number 2, of course, of the day. Team Empire versus Team Vitality, completely reformed Vitality. I'm Milosh, coming at you live from my kitchen. Jess and Des are on camera for some reason. Let's get them out and get Hat and Flute in.
There we go.
There you go.
I am sorry we're not Des, Chu, and Jess production. Jesus.
Does this mean that Hap is Des' equal? Nobody say that, because Des will go nuts next time we have any sort of content and tear deeper into Hap. Thanks so much, my lady and gentlemen, for joining me here for this game, Empire versus Vitality. How about we talk about the general story before we dive into the individual squads very quickly? Let's go, Hap. What's the dealio for this one?
Well, first of all, Vitality, a team that has potential. We saw them play against BDS. A 5-7 loss was, there is some potential right there. There is a potential for a team to grow. And we thought to see that against Rogue, where they managed to pick up the first 4 rounds. But after that, they kind of let it slide, and Rogue was able to take the win eventually. So for me, the question now is, which Vitality will we see throughout the remainder of the season? Will it be the one that we saw against BDS, making it quite close, not quite able to take the win against the top team yet? Or was it the one that we saw during the first 4 rounds versus Rogue, a Vitality that was very dominant? Or is it going to be the one that we saw after that, who basically gave away the map due to just a little bit too many mistakes and too costly of a mistakes to see happen? So, which one of the 3 will it be? Choose your fighter.
And Team Empire, what's the 2 cents on this team? Because it looks like they're having a bit of a rough start again.
Yeah, and I think that's one of those things, is there's been a fair few teams that haven't quite lived up to high expectations. This is a team that we have expectations for. We have to take into consideration their first showings. Okay, this point might have made a little bit more sense if we hadn't seen Virtus Pro to date, but it was VP in their first day and then BDS in their second. That's not easy opening games for a team. You're against your kind of regional rivals as a setup. They know what you're like, they know how you play. Then you're against one of the league favorites. It's tough, and they were able to kind of claw themselves at least into the game somehow, but still no win on the board. Here is, for my money, the opportunity to kind of get the real taste and the flavor of how their season is going and how it's probably going to go, because you're against one of those other teams that's a bit shaky. Potentially you're against one of these unknown entities in Vitality. So let's see, Empire, if we put the first 2 weeks aside, this is your time to make your statement about how your season's going to be.
I think this is the overarching story of this game between Empire and Vitality. You have the opportunity to make a statement. Show us what you have. Empire won back in November in the November Major. Can they actually continue on with that success with what's been going on in the Russian Major League? That's for us to discover today. Vitality, can you prove to us that finally a massive roster shuffle is actually going to do something for your squad? Prove it to us today. Come on, we got to start showing things, because Des mentioned it in the beginning. You have a finite amount of points and you don't want to end up losing them on nothing, and especially at the very first stage for these big squads. Though I'm curious to see who is on the head-to-head. You guys picked one player out of each one of these 2 teams. Compare and contrast. There it is, Shepard and Shinka. Hap, can you please guide me through the numbers here, because you're a numbers guy, and I just don't understand what's going on here. I don't know.
You don't understand, Milosh.
No,
well, let me explain you. Oh, it's just an act. Okay. Anyway, Shinka and Shepard both, of course, on the support roles. The Thatcher coming in and operator, we do not see that often on the side of Shinka, and we do see the Aruni coming out. And Aruni is that new operator that we see coming out every now and then. Does have some impact. I think you could, compare her to Castle, but also maybe a little bit, not exactly to Mira. And that might sound a bit weird to people, but we're not going into that too deep now. Anyway, close to a 1.0 rating for both these, and actually the one thing that stands out right here is that Shinka, even on the support role, has 2 opening kills, so that is something to look out for this matchup.
I think that's the thing here, is if you're looking at these 2 playing this traditional kind of support role in situations, we've seen a consistency from Shinka. We've seen them be second on the board both times. We haven't seen that in Shepherd yet. The last game was their better performance, but they were bottom of the board for the first time round. So if it comes down to the back line of these two teams, which we've seen be a bit shaky, being shaky today, I think that might be what judges the tale.
All right, let's see which map we're going to be playing on, as our lobby is ready. So I'm quite curious about what's being set up for us. We'll see Cafe Dostoevsky banned by Vitality, Chalet banned by Empire. Left at the end is Clubhouse. That's our decider. There's the last decision given to Empire, and they're going to start off on the attacking side as Vitality, I assume, picked defense as the start. So how about we wrap this up real quick because our game is almost ready. Hap, what do you think? Is this the right decision to take Vitality to Clubhouse?
We saw Vitality play BDS on this map. We saw them pick up 3 defensive rounds right there, 2 attacking rounds. So it was a very close game in the end. Shows that they have some capabilities here, some potential, and we might not have seen the top of that. So I don't know. I hope Empire will have something up their sleeves. Vitality, they did seem quite strong on this map.
I mean, I guess it's one of those things where it's traditional. If I'm going to point towards the fingers of supports showing up, if I'm going to point towards that being a story that I think is a good one to paint for this game, Club is that. Club is familiar. Club is territory that both these teams have stepped on a lot. This could, for my money, play into the favors of Empire a little bit. It's stable ground, and stability is what they need most, I think, here, because it's their pace that they want to set.
Are you going for Empire just because it starts with M?
Yeah, entirely biased for that reason.
Highly biased. Completely understandable, Fluke. So, Half-Fluke, thank you so much for your intel on this game. Vitality versus Team Empire. Both teams with a lot to prove in this Playday. It's the third one. It's time to step up. This is the time for judgment, and we're going to see how it all goes down in Hanover. We move over to Germany for Clubhouse, all bound to our casters. Jessica, please take it away.
Thank you very much, Milosh. It's time for another game of Siege. And that first one was so quick, it was basically a speed run. We aren't in the summer yet, guys. It's not games done quick time just yet. But let's see if this one at least grinds to a halt or slows down for a little bit longer. Now, when I say that, Jess, I look way back to the very start of EUL when we had the very first game last year ever of EUL. Who was it who played? It was Empire versus Virtus Pro. On what map? It was on Clubhouse, and Empire steamrolled them 7-1. They completely crushed them. This is a home for Empire. The question now comes, can Vitality pick themselves up out of the dirt, out of the puddle from last week, and give themselves something to celebrate this week?
Whew, that was a lot of words. I'm trying to process everything that just came out of your mouth, Des. But what I can process, you do. You keep me very well on my toes, and I love you for it. Nevertheless, one thing I'm going to do statistically as a color caster is probably just look back to the last time Vitality went onto Clubhouse. I'm sitting there going, you know what? Pretty damn close against BDS. I'm calling BDS the kings of EUL. If they're going to push the scoreline pretty damn close, then they've got something up their sleeve. Problem with having something up your sleeve very recently is if you're Team Empire and if you've watched any of Team Empire's content, they will show you how hard their support staff works. That's a problem, because if your support staff's working hard in the background and they're watching this recent VOD, you got to change something up, otherwise they know everything.
Yeah, what I love about this, I think, is that you're right. 2 weeks ago, we saw Vitality have a pretty good showing on this map. Empire, though, are looking in form. We speak about a number of teams that are on the up and up, are finding form, are finding an identity, and Empire are one of those teams. So this one, definitely one of those hard ones to call. But let's not forget, looking at the top right of your screen at the live rankings, not looking too good for either team at the moment. We're into Operator Banzo. Let's see how it shapes up. No huge surprise to see Maverick being the first one taken off the board.
Well, they're keeping to tradition here, Des. That's what they got rid of last map as well. So they're just going to keep the trend following. And if you're Team Empire, you should know that that's what's coming. So it should be no surprise to you. And, well, they should follow it up with a Malusi ban in their defensive ban. How will they respond? The typical Thatcher ban will come out. And that's something that wasn't present in the last match. It was a Habana and a Maverick ban. But either way, it's really not going to stint the attack. We've got so much to work with these days, operator-wise. Kaid will also follow. Not a surprise with a Thatcher ban. Nope. You don't really want to go into your defensive half and go,
have to ban the Kaid.
Right? You just got to get rid of it. Now we should see the Malusi Des, and instead, Oh, am I? The trend is broken. They've changed something up here. This is good.
Interesting. The Wamai we haven't seen banned away for a while. A lot of teams aren't really banning it away that much anymore, purely because since the change came through to him, where the cooldown was increased slightly in the Jaeger change, it's not as oppressive anymore. What we are seeing an absolute ton of is Mute and Mozzie being brought along by a lot of teams, normally in conjunction with something like a Mirror. So I thought with that coming out, well, it's not the kind of ban that you normally see engineered, because again, it's just not, it's still seen a lot, but it's not that oppressive that teams think you need to be banning it away. So an interesting play by Vitality for sure. Just screams to me, they want to get inside, they want to do some damage, they don't want to faff around with clearing out utility forever. We'll see how that shapes up in the second half, because of course, they do start out on the other side. It's Empire who kick things off an attack, and a bit of a different site to start things off, Jess.
I really like teams that start on this particular site, because there's been a lot of strength on it. I wouldn't say every team has strengths on it by any means. Of course, it can be quite difficult if you don't have those power positions. And since that gym remake, and people are like, what, gym remake? Well, they just made the little gym weight section a solid backing, rather than being able to see and shoot through it. And so with that solid backing there, thank you very much. I believe it's Medics on the cam today. Shout out to you. It makes that area far more playable. You've got a frost mount on the window. Sometimes you'll even get those castles on the window. It actually used to be super popular to run the castle on this side, but they're not going to, because guess what? You can bring the Banshees instead, and they are hella oppressive. So I'm saying that even without a castle, even though I really truly think you should bring one, they're still going to be able to do a cash hold, move all the way out. This is what we would call a default setup, for lack of better phrases here, by extending out the shield top red. So far, nothing out of the ordinary for me. My problem will be is how do the attackers of Empire deal with it when they've been so extraordinarily slow in the past few play days?
It's always worth summarizing as well why we get these holds inside a CC. A lot of it being because you want control of that west window looking at a CCTV. Stops the attackers having control of the south balcony, meaning they can play on the windows of Master, as Medics is expertly showing you, and use that to really pressure into the sites. And we've seen some teams really fail to take control of CC, are then forced to push their way through logistics and through Jacuzzi. And it's such a one-dimensional attack that you see things like double C4 kills coming out of the hatch below Gym, for example. We saw that just last week. So taking this east side is essential. And what does that mean? It means utility has got to be committed. It means time's going to get consumed. It really can burn a lot of resources for the attackers, not just in the way of time, but also things like the hard breach. So you also need to get control of Jacuzzi. That's why you see so many teams holding this side of the map.
Well, speaking of holding this side of the map, they've also invested 2 reinforcements over towards Garage as well. I mean, that's a lot of reinforcements over towards Cash. I believe they've left the side walls towards Red soft as a bit of a sacrifice to being able to get those reinforced. This is a direct counter. It has to be. We know those support staff of Vitality in the hands of Helby and the hands of Leluin. They do hard work, so they've done their research here, Des.
Yeah, this is a hard hold, though. Grenades have come singing out. C4s have been thrown back. It's explosive between both sides, but there's Rise nicking one onto the head of Joystick, followed up very briefly after by a grenade. Things are even now, but we've been here for about 1:50, Jess. We're 1 for 1. The defenders have pulled back, and only now are the attackers probably realizing, with a bit of droning coming in from Shepard, that they are free to take this east side, as I say, west side, east side. Go into a whole argument
east
about
side
that
of the
if
west
you
side,
really
Des?
want to. Yeah, we can be here all day on that one.
Mate.
You did touch on the reinforcements, by the way, but of course on this site, you only really need to worry about reinforcing Jacuzzi wall. Maybe you commit 1 or 2 in towards bathroom as well. You just don't need that many, so why not use it on the extended hold, Jess?
Why not? A lot of people use it on the red wall, but you don't need if you give it up after a while. And, well, you can see Shepard slaying those over to the wall, but they are going to be mute jammed by Cactus's mute jam, and that's a problem. You're down to the last 25 seconds here. You need to start stepping up the pace, Des, because all of that work you did in Cash will be for naught if you don't get in and P4's there to respond.
And it's still completely for naught as well. We said about 1:50 got wasted out towards the east. They lost an operator in the process as well. They have nothing left to clear that mute jam off the wall. This is why you go for extended holds and you waste so much time. Shepard does swing one back, and this is where it all comes down to gun skill. If you can collect kills, you can swing things around, but it's Rise to find a third, Cactus to close things out. Vitality showing exactly how you play these extended holds to such great effect.
I mean, you could do a beautiful job, like I said, over towards Grudge, over towards Cash, but the whole purpose of drawing the attention of the attackers over towards there is, like you said, you want to waste time. So the beautiful little support players like Cactus, etc., can sit inside with their little SMG-11s, polishing them and going, you know what? When the attackers, if they ever get here, I'm going to be ready for it, because they're just going to run straight in, give me a bit of a free kill, and that's exactly what happened. Rise did a really fantastic job in that first round, and he's been sitting pretty, middle ground for his team for the most part. Good to see him stepping up. Nevertheless, it's only the second round now, and we're going to get a bit more of a taste as to what Vitality has to show us, but on the bottom floor.
More conventional site, I'd wager. And you have to draw questions, I guess, against Empire there, committing all 5 members for a solid 2 minutes to go in for this kind of extended hold clear. Some teams like BDS before have basically got someone up around Jacuzzi Wall very quickly. They've rolled a grenade through the wall, they've opened it up and then moved everyone out towards the east once you've already dealt with that wall, because, like you saw in the last round, it doesn't become a deterrent later into the round when you know you can't open that wall up and you're a little bit screwed. You deal with that quite early on. A few teams do like to do that with walls like on the east when we're holding in CC as well, before you start thinking about things like Garage. But I mentioned earlier on, Jess, about how much mutant Mozzie we see. We're not seeing a Mozzie, but we are seeing a very much off-site hold here coming out of Vitality.
The way that they've also sort of given a little bit of redundancy to this huge roam that they're employing here is they've got Cactus on the Echo, so if someone does come in and rush for the plant, there's at least a little bit of utility there to stop it and, slow it down and stall it so that the roamers can get back on the site in case of a rush. I don't think a team like Team Empire, who is usually very methodical with their clears, will fall for the rush. I would like them to. I would like them to employ what is the obvious counter to a huge roam like this, like Rogue did on the previous game, but it's not going to happen. They're going to do the full clear. They're going to use all their utility to try and do it, and they might just fall into the trap, the little spider web trap here that Vitality's setting of, come to us upstairs, we're going to waste your time again, buddy, and you won't even see our support players if you're lucky.
I just see an Echo and I already start getting a bit of jitters, I think, Jess. We've seen what happened last week. Cactus in his play against Kayak, too many Ks. In the game against VP on Consulate, for example, the last round clutch that he pulled off the back of an Echo drone. We saw them on Cafe inside a kitchen. We already said last week, we don't care if they're not invisible anymore. They can still be incredibly high impact as long as they're parked in the right positions. So keep an eye on him. We spoke already about Cactus being a massive anchor for them last week on the Maestro on Consulate. Rise again, just popping. Now she's running up towards Oil there, finding a kill and then backing himself away. What a kill, by the way. Straight through the garage door, I think.
Yeah, I mean, considering he is the only operator that when you melee, it can make a huge hole in the wall. You make rotation, make huge lines of sight. That's going to be a huge detriment, whether it's hatches, windows, or just a complete line of sight out of a soft wall. You're going to get gifted, and Rise takes the gift very well. Katie looking nice and shiny for the moment. And as we're reaching just past the halfway mark now, things are looking dire for Empire. And I don't think it's going to be the Empire Strikes Back, because they haven't even struck anything really yet, Des.
They haven't. They've tried, and tried as they might. There's nothing really coming back off it. A lot of explosions around, always playing with the happy feet as it's pretty hot sauce in the room. Doesn't find any death coming onto him, though. You thought for a second someone might find him with the amount of explosives being yeeted up towards the ceiling, but no one is out. P4 with a nicely placed camera, actually feeding a good bit of information back and forth. That's what they're using to feed that information, I think. But it's what else they can find. They know that kitchen's going to be the point of ingress here because there's a sledge present, there's the floor being opened up, the hatch has been opened up as well. They've got all the right tools in place, but the problem is they can make it incredibly predictable, and they've still got a C4 to play behind as well as the Echo drone. 30 seconds remaining. You've got to start thinking about the execute now, boys. Another camera.
These are such good cameras and medics. I'm sure they're probably sitting there cursing you for giving up all these great positions we've seen so far. But Rise, he doesn't miss. He'll take the head straight off of Joystick. That was going to be the person who smoked out these lines of sight. Guess what, Des? All gone.
Absolutely gone to nothing. I was about to say 5 versus 2, but it did turn into 4. It's a 4 versus 1. Rise has done it again. Another triple kill in the round. He's hitting heads today. Bibu collects the last, but again, another 3K for Rise. 6 kills across 2 rounds. And Empire, try as they might, just they haven't got the push. They haven't got the gonads to really go for a push here. The gusto's a better word than gonads. We'll go with that one. Or they both sound absolutely fantastic in my books. They're just struggling to really put an attack together at this point, I think. Vitality are shutting them down at every single turn. What is it with... I'll tell you what, if this is the way it happens, I lambast a couple of teams and they poor perform the next week, I'll do it more often. We get more exciting turnarounds that way.
It's like the long term. Like I do really short term caster curses. Like I'll say something and then they'll die instantly, and I'm like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to speak your name into existence. And then you'll do the long term ones. Let's play it like that from now on. Okay, you do the long term caster curse, medium to long term, and I'll do the short term ones, and that's how we're following. But that little bit of a flash of the blitz there, my most hated operator in the entire operator pool there. I'm glad he gets 6 picked out because. Try as you might, Pengu tried last year to make... Shut up, Des. You don't even know where Split is on Theme Park. For the love of God, I'm not listening to your composition opinion. Oh, got him. Nevertheless, I'm glad it wasn't taken because Pengu gave it a real good go last year to show that you could viably take Blitz and you sort of use the smokes and make ingress aggressively that way, and it still didn't work for G2. So if Pengu, the Shield Master, can't make it work, I don't really think anyone can. So glad to see it gone. But we will go to CCTV, which I actually think is most teams' primary bomb side, or at least secondary from the bottom floor. So being the third bomb side for Vitality, I'm telling you, they know this map.
Just got to keep on giving Empire the runaround, I think, and making them guess, oh, where are we going next? Where are these drones got to go early on? And in fact, look, finally, a bit of adaptation to the amount of info being picked up by Vitality. We've got the IQ on side. But the big question stands is, can you find all those cameras? Because you're not going to run around the entire map with the scanner out in hand looking for those cameras for the full 2 or 3 minutes. It's about the ones that you can catch quite early on, or at least in the area where you're trying to get early entry into the building, I think. And then maybe later on if you have time. But time has been something that Empire have not had consistently. Vitality challenging them at every single turn in the building.
Well, speaking of time, this is one of those sites where you can give up a little bit of time focusing on that platform wall out towards that, what do they call it? The Kennels platform. Some people will call it Kennels platform. I just call it CCTV platform. Whatever you name it, it doesn't matter. Because really, if you do a garage push here, you get the platform over. Things can be in your hand pretty quickly. And it's really the only site where you can take a little bit of time. But doesn't really matter now because they're still working out how are they going to open up the wall? How are they going to make the ingress into garage here? And the problem is that when you go below with the Ash, okay, you can push back that bandit trigger, but what else is going to follow there? You need to be careful. And well, Rise finally goes down. The bandit trigger, however, he is not dispatched of properly.
Manages to get one wall covered up at least, but sadly it is the wrong wall. We saw a couple of teams when they come to open this wall, they get the A-Selms on one side, the Thermite on the other. You guarantee at least one will go off in that case. And here they've done enough to be able to get it opened out. Unfortunate for the Bandit to take out the wrong wall. Now that's opened up, they can rotate and look for a second angle of attack, because very commonly when you're on this site, you want to have at least 2 angles of attack. You want this east platform, you want garage. Sometimes you just want to rotate everyone over to construction and go for a push into cash, whilst leaving one person on the rappel out towards the east platform. Not quite sure what the plan is for Empire. It looks like it's going to be garage, but that means they've got to commit all this utility to unseat Cactus.
They are trying to cook the ADSs, but there are no grenades following. Instead, Stuns will be the one. They want him to peek so that he can be shot, but instead, he'll fire back onto the head of Scyther, and Joystick across the map will get his own, but that's not the intention here. They wanted to shoot him, and finally, they get the trades they need, and, well, this is a much quicker round, but not by much. Only 30 seconds left in the round.
Much better by Emperor. Admittedly, Joystick doing work for a double kill to come through, but P4 sitting far back, taking the long-range kill first into garage. The second onto the aggressing Joystick is now in a 1 versus 2. Knows the Zophia's to the right-hand side. Goes round for the spray, but shoots the wrong spot. Dan collects the kill. Empire will show this is not going to be a total rollover like the last game. 2-1 now the scoreline.
That's a close one. It's not very convincing, but it's a round win nevertheless, and that's what you want to get you into the mix. You want a little bit of momentum on your side, and I think it was Vital. I want to keep saying Vitality. All of the teams that start with V, it's just absolutely crippling me mentally. Virtus Pro, last match, you saw that they took a timeout after 3 rounds lost in a row. That's generally the threshold that most teams and support staff will take before they need to start stemming the hemorrhage and just going, stop now. We can't keep having them flow with their momentum, so we'll put in a tactical timeout, which has been added as of this season on the online sphere, and we can roll with it. They won't need to now because they've won that round back. If they win the next one, it's an opportunity for Vitality, for example, to throw a tactical timeout when they feel the need to. So there's a little bit extra here and there we've got to play with as well here, Des, and I'm loving the freedom that teams now have.
It's always that question of what you do or when you employ that, bearing in mind you only get one. And many people will say, many coaches, players will say that's always brought in when the mentality is collapsing. When players are arguing, when they're bickering, when no one's listening to the IGL, when things are genuinely in a state of disarray, that's when you pull the coach in to say, boys, come on, snap out of it now. I can't give you an individual strat to go and win, for example, but what I can do is get you reset and get the IGL back in control. That can have massive impacts in a game. We saw it actually over the last couple of weeks. The number of times that a team was down 0-3, 0-4, and then suddenly they have the tactical timeout, they have a chat, they come back into it and win the next round comfortably. It can lead to massive swings that can save or lose games.
Absolutely. Something that we haven't really highlighted, and a lot of people who don't watch comp games consistently will just be a little bit questioning, is the consistent Frost play from teams. I love it. You get the shield, you get a great weapon as your primary, almost one of the strongest SMGs in the entire defensive lineup that is an automatic weapon. And you get, the Frost mats to deal with as well, which are both area denial and, DBNO opportunities. So for me, Frost is a great operator. Shield probably is why most teams will take it alongside the ITA secondary that was added, but that's why you're seeing the Frost coming out. And I'm glad that now Empire are dealing with this wall, because that's where the reinforcements were put on purpose. Because if you watch previous Empire games on Clubhouse, they'll always use this angle over towards CC door.
They are committing 5 over here once again, mind you. Drones in and around, finding out what the hell is going on. They had the right information now, knowing that Bibu is top of red. Rise is currently sat inside a cache. But it's a much more cautious setup from Vitality, almost like they're aware they don't want to hold it for too long. That C4 was almost perfectly placed, but Scyther a little bit too far back. And with that utility committed, I imagine now is a good time to think about pulling back. We've already seen Rise dial back a little bit towards the door. It looks now like Bibu is going to join him. They're happy. How much utility have they drawn? Flashes, frags, a smoke, the Selmas, all 3 done and dusted. That has been a great roam for Vitality to waste a minute and a half, all of that utility without losing a single man. Fair play.
It was a tiny adaptation by having 2 ADSs over towards red rather than the one. And they adapted. It's sometimes it's just adding that one little piece of utility. It's the small things in life, isn't it, Des? And I think you know all about that. But but nevertheless, adding that extra ADS on the top of red, that is just so much lost for Empire. And I mean, time's one of the things that they're struggling with the most. You don't also want to be down on utility. So good to see the IQ being brought in. We criticize the APAC region for not using it enough, but EU has always consistently brought it out as a clear adaptation time after time.
Some teams lean on it quite heavily. I mean, whenever I think of old G2 back when Pengu was present, they would often lean on the IQ as their kind of shot calling mechanism. Old school Secret would do the same. Meep, very, very vocal about the use of IQ and what you could do from the roof of a building to guide your team on where gadgets are, the right way to attack, so on and so forth. It's more than just a gadget scanner. It's also a very useful tool to shot call the team around the map. Speaking of shots, we've got about 15 seconds left and 9 men left alive. There's going to have to be a lot of shots in the dying 10 seconds. The push coming out. Shepherd in the same spot as before. The spray comes through. I thought it was going to be a team kill. There's 2 on the deck, but they're going for a plan. He's on the ground like a snake. Can't win it out. Shinka gets him down. Gets the diffuser down, but sadly, Scyther swings around at the last second to crush Vitality's hopes and pull the round over for Empire. My God, was that down to the final few milliseconds or what?
I'm going to have to go back on that one and absolutely put it in 0.25 speed to see how quickly he had to shoot that SMG-11. I mean, maybe if it was a slower fire rate weapon, he would have lost. That's how close that round was, and it came down to that dying kill. Ooh, these rounds are not very confident. If you're a Team Empire fan, you're sitting there and just on the edge of your seat, hoping that this starts to roll into a more confident momentum as we get into the last couple of rounds here of the first half. Close, however, but statistically, this map has been pretty even attacking and defending wise as the years have sort of rolled on. So for me, I'm sort of sitting here putting not too much stock in the fact that there's an even scoreline now. I want to see how the second half rolls out.
I always tend to give, when the meta changes significantly or a new map comes out, you give it a stage of pro play around the world, APAC, LATAM, NA, and EU, to see what the general feel is going to be. And I think a lot of people have alluded to saying, the game probably is going to start being quite attacker leaning now. You know, a lot of teams can bring along 4 frags, for example. The Iana's super strong with the Gon 6-2. Everyone was kind of saying, whoa, we'll be going too far here and giving the attackers far too much. I don't think so. I keep on saying that the last couple of weeks have been some of the most enjoyable Siege I've ever watched. I think it's really aggressive in a way. It's not slow. It's not a massive utility burn the whole way through. everything feels meaningful, which I think is what gives it such joy to watch. So give it another step, give it the end of the stage or so, and then we'll have an evaluation of how a lot of maps are leaning. But I think I'm with you where a balance on Clubhouse feels about right at the moment.
Well, it's a very enjoyable spectacle, and unfortunately, I think Team Empire is thinking back to the old Empire that it was, and it's not able to speed up and use all of the effect that the new attacking meta has for it. So that's what I'm thinking when it comes to Empire. I'm like, damn, you guys, you're in a new meta here. Catch up to it, boys, because you look like you're playing the old Empire way, and that doesn't really fit into this meta. Nevertheless, our boy Rise, I'm glad that we're sort of getting a little bit of a spotlight onto him. I know that Medics is hearing us. He's had a great fragging game, so if we can get a little bit more onto the man himself as he starts taking those fights, I'd love to see what it is he's doing mechanically, which makes him superior towards VP, or rather Team Empire as they currently stand. And Medics asked me which one. I'm talking about our man Rise. Medics, please highlight him when he's getting in a gunfight. We got to see what he's doing to get all these frags.
I mean, it's been a couple of rounds and he's done nothing. 2-3K start off and then sadly can't quite continue it into rounds 3 and 4, but they are rounds that Empire won. It's when Empire have kind of warmed up a little bit and are starting to get more of a feel for it, maybe. Here, it's more of this kind of aggressive style coming out of Vitality once more, that they look to be seemingly everywhere on the map. They had the Jacuzzi wall reinforced. They've got a couple of players out towards the east. Let's not forget, we are playing the basement sites here. So again, Empire are probably starting each and every round and just being like, another full map clear, really? All right, fine, let's just get on with it. And they know that there is a lot to do, but as Vitality has shown, Empire leave everything until the final 15-30 seconds or so. That's when mistakes start happening and when it's quite easy to capitalize.
Well, the proning suffered before for Vitality, and they've spotted him right out. What are you going to do, P4? You're going to have to challenge onto this one, buddy, because there's no rotate out. Hatch is reinforced, and there's no other way that you are going to escape. They're pinching him from the freezer, from the window, from the door. If he can get at least one, this is going to be huge. Using the C4, absolutely the play. He'll get one for the freezer and one for the C4, and he absolutely is making it work over in Kitchen. He's cooking up a storm here, Des.
That could be 2 kills, maybe even 3 if they push him for this one. He got one down. He's found it as well. Is there another one coming? I don't think there is. They're inside a bar, but he has still got always down on the deck. He finally gets collected, but 2 kills and about 45 seconds wasted. That is massive from P4 inside a kitchen.
When you're under that much pressure, I tell you what, you got to deep fry something, my man, because he was not getting out of there alive. He had to make some impact. Yes, he did, and that's going to be huge here. Do I think this ends in just an old Vitality rush in the last 10 seconds? Hell yeah, I do, Des, and I'm all for it.
Oh man, it's going to have to be Scrappy that are dropping in with 10 seconds to go. I always say no mistakes can be made, and the mistake was made. Shinka inside of dirt. Dan trades back, but there is no time to go. Always has got it all to do. Doesn't have any chance because the clock hit 0. Vitality take round number 5. If you want to see what a scrappy, aggressive Clubhouse looks like, this is one of those games you want to watch back.
Yeah, go back on it, slow it all the way down. I mean, for Team Empire, they've slowed it down too much for me, Des. I know we have said it Playday 1. I know we said it Playday 2. I feel like we're just a record on repeat here for Team Empire, is that we're just saying, you're too slow, you're too slow, you're too slow. It's not even that old Team Empire did this and they were slow and that they were methodical to the point of needing to execute in the last 15 seconds. Something's wrong. It's almost like I said before, they haven't adapted to the new meta and they're just keeping things really methodical to the point of just missing out the fact that the time is a problem. I'm worried that this is just going to continuously be a problem. They're good with their early and mid round, and then it's just like time just undoes all of the excellent work they've done in the early and mid round. What's the point of it if you can't make it work in the late round and execution?
I will give to Vitality, it's been some excellent defending so far. Empire, though, do still have those 2 rounds. One of them coming by a last-second shot, as we saw inside of the bathroom of gym and bedroom. It was very, very close, but it's still 2 rounds. And if they can persevere here, go through into the second half, even with 2 rounds on the board, I wouldn't be too worried. What's always important to remember about this game is the positioning of both teams. They're both currently sat in 9th and 10th with 1 overtime loss and 1 flat-out loss. They both have a single point. They are the lowest 2 teams currently in EUL after 2 days, and yes, 2 days isn't really a whole lot to go by, but it tells you something. This is that scrap for the bottom side of the table that both teams have need to make rapid improvement. I think so far from what we've seen, Vitality have got a really good shot of being one of those teams that have made that rapid improvement. They did look good against BDS on this map. The question then stands, is it just Clubhouse they look solid on? Because last week on Consulate, very different story.
You know how we said they added an extra ADS to top red to deal with the fact that they had only one flashed it last time? You know what they've done now? 2 ADSs and a Syria game. Not just the fact that they'd already adapted the previous round to make it even more reinforced for the red, they've added a Syria gate instead. Well, you don't necessarily need a shield there when you can just play mid-red behind the barrier, or you could rotate into cash. So really the shield was so that you can aggress. But if you're just time wasting, you don't need the shield. You got the Syria gate. They have to cook it some way.
Yeah, I was going to say, it makes me nervous if you're playing halfway on the stairs because you have to run across, and if someone's on window or just pushes in from the breach, they see you. You are not safely getting across into cash. You are screwed. That's partly why I like the shield being in that spot here. So I imagine as soon as there's any kind of pressure, he's going to peace out. That's exactly what he's done now. As soon as that Soria gate got pops, he was like, I'm done, guys. I'm out. Peace. See you back in human bedroom in about 60 seconds time.
I mean, you waste half the round, and the only damage you took was Shinka, who unfortunately got his toes sort of popped around by the drone hole, and that was early in the round. That was unexpected. That was through no fault of his own, really. So you've actually done a really good job. We're going to keep saying this. Vitality is doing the stall method. It is a very popular one, especially back in the day during the utility meta. These days, not so much because, I mean, most teams can just get through it rather quickly, but they've made it work in a meta where it shouldn't be possible. I'm loving it. I think it's working really well. Do I think Empire now have sped this round up? Yeah, but there's still surrogates to work with. There's still side to work with. Is Jacuzzi Wall even open up, Des? I have too many questions.
I always talk about it, whether or not you open it early or late. And the thing is, whenever they haven't attacked this site, but other sites, they have rolled a grenade under the wall, they've opened it up with a Selma, and then gone on to get on with the rest of the round. Again, they're leaving it very late in this round. They do still have quite a bit of utility up. They've got the Habana, for example, that can go and get this open for them. But if there's a mute jammer on the other side of it, they've got 2 frags this time. They didn't commit them towards red, so they're learning. At least they've still got those to make use of. Fair play.
Well, now that the time is dwindling ever so low, you can see Danny wants to rotate down. Maybe he wants to do a push-up, you know, the main stairs to get a pinch happening. But this is deja vu. This is not the time you want to be rushing in for, because those SMG-11s at close range will shred. And Scyther is struggling to make the Logi work here, Des. All of a sudden, they're just going to walk into a death mine. This is not Empire at its best. Imagine a C4 sailing out now. They'd all catch it on the ingress. And unless this plan happens, well, it's going to be the Ash that makes it work. It's all up to Rise. It was all of the Ash plays there, and always he collects that round single-handedly, because if he wasn't there to pick up that player inside of Showers you just saw there, that plant doesn't go down.
That absolutely is a round that you could probably screenshot about 5 seconds prior to the end of it and be like, yeah, who wins this round? And no one would have said Empire. When you've got 2 players rushing to sprint and vault over secret wall, you've got one, well, half wall at that point, I guess, given it had been shattered to pieces, another one charging into the hallway. You just think there is no way they get away with this. It's going to be an easy hold down left mouse button, Vitality win the round, it's done. But somehow Empire, 2 rounds in that half, this could have been 5-1, but 2 rounds in that half, they have taken back from the jaws of defeat. They sit at 3-3. Vitality in shambles at this point, I imagine, thinking, my God, we should be so much further ahead right now because their defenses were good. Yes. But Empire have done enough.
You know, you said this last week about Vitality, is they dropped silly rounds. Silly rounds that they had it almost the entirety of the round, percentile-wise, statistically it should be theirs, utility, man advantage-wise, however you want to damn put it. Those rounds should have been Vitality's last week. They lost because of it. Are we going to see the exact same repeat here, where Vitality in all of their fundamentals look great, and then they just let it go in the last second? They just poofs in front of them like a magician, and you know, you get the rabbit in the hat kind of thing, but in reverse, just gone in front of their eyes. And that's the hardest defeat, I think, when you know that everything was a possibility for you and you just drop it in the last 5 seconds.
Ooh. I mean, okay, so there's something to take from both teams. Empire a little bit slow on the attack, Vitality good with the defense, but the kind of end delivery was a little bit poor in places. Ultimately, it's cost them a round or 2 there that you would wager they should have on side and be up 5-1 here. But the scoreline sits at 3-3. Empire now gets to show us what their defenses look like, and they're starting out like a more conventional team here, Jess, on CC.
Yeah, a little bit closer to home, at least when you're thinking about how the meta is on Clubhouse since its remake. So for the most part, I mean, Vitality shouldn't struggle with this. Should be able to predominantly get open Garage, the platform, or you can see people droning in out to see what the big setup is behind the wall. They themselves employed a bandit trick. However, on the side of Empire, they don't want to do that. They're just going to put a Surrey gate on it. They're going to let you open it up, and then they can deal with the efforts afterwards, making sure that by throwing a concussion through, no one can bandit trick, but there's no bandit there to be able to receive, and that wall will get open smoothly. This is a very different strategy to the one that Vitality put up on their defense. I'm wondering how Empire are going to deal with it, because Vitality, it's not the old Vitality anymore. They've got time to work with.
They have indeed. 1:40, and you speak there around that saying the old Vitality. For those who don't know, Vitality were always regarded as a team that were arguably the slowest of a lot of major regions. They always left things until the last second. It was very methodical, sometimes to the point of pain, and could cost them rounds as it came round to the dying second. So hopefully there's a little bit more pace here. And knowing what our temper used to be like, of course, where Shinka and P4 came from, I'm thinking there's going to be a little more zest in this team now, a little more drive to get things done in good time. But of course, that depends on how they handle the setup coming out of Empire and how quick they can adapt.
What worries me is teams, and we've seen this throughout all of EUL, so I'm not criticizing Rise here at all, but they stand there and they hope someone peaks. That's not a viable strategy. You've got to force them out. You've got to absolutely use everything in your arsenal to make them stand up and get out of position, or use a grenade. A few Empire players, whether or not mistakenly or through peeking, have had their health drained considerably. Joystick, not sure how many smokes he's got left to play with there, but he needs to be ever so careful. Got to dance around with his life to be able to deny the plant. And Rise, he'll be able to get that beautiful grenade I said before. You gotta force him out, and a grenade does just that.
Force him out, he does. It gets him into a spot where it's a 4 versus 3 for Vitality with about 25 seconds to play. They have the numbers but don't have the clock. I always say that clock becomes the 6th man for the defenders the closer it gets to 0. Pressure coming in, but still sat a bit further back. The C4 on the side of Shepard here. If he can bring out a big deny, it could be huge, but I think he's currently in completely the wrong place. Knows that he's on the wall, but doesn't expect the guy who's down outside. I thought the C4 might do something, but a little bit mispositioned. Shepard's all alone. Does get one as a nice drive by onto Rise as he jumps out the window, but I don't think he'll be able to collect these final 3 kills in about the 20 seconds required if he wants to be able to get this defuse off. He absolutely shall not. Vitality with a pretty clinical execute. Empire with a pretty clinical defense, or an expected defense, I suppose I should say, but just couldn't quite execute it the way you'd like.
Good execution there. You know what actually saved them is that a lot of teams are now deciding not to play in default next to bomb chassis. You know why I like it? Because it is very difficult, unless you have a C4 prepped over towards red, to be able to stop the default, or the new default rather, next to corner of breach. And I like that play because, okay, smokes are always going to be prepped by the support player to be thrown over CCTV shelf. Sometimes you don't even know the plant's going down. You can hear it, but you don't know the exact position. You might not have the intel to work with. Me, personally, I like that plant. We saw, I don't know which other team was rocking it last Playday on Clubhouse. I'd have to go back through my records, but we've seen that plant become rather popular. Whether it's through scrims, whether it's through just people identifying that there's too much predictability in the default plant spot, that's probably going to become the new default, and I'm liking it.
You're thinking of Secret versus Trainhard, I think, from last week, actually, and you are correct. When they did just nick inside the East Wall and get the plant down, C4s came swinging out towards the fault, towards the south side of the room, and it was like, oh, well, I guess we're screwed. Like, they're not there, and we're not going to be able to stop the plant going down. Unfortunate. You are correct, and maybe that is going to be the swing that we see, the meta change, dare I say, for plant positions. There'll be a counter that gets developed. We'll find out what it looks like over time. And this grenade through smoke, pretty impactful to say the least. Clearing the player off window, can't see through the smoke, so can't kill him. And Scyther's just dead as a donut there. Nothing to be able to achieve. Down he goes. And Vitality, for now at least, pull themselves into the lead.
What the scoreline has shown, it is a close game, and I felt a little bit sided towards Vitality's performance, especially on the first half, compared to Team Empire's. But now that Empire's on the defense, there's a lot more they can do, and not to say that this map is particularly defender-sided. I think even over the NA finals, it was much more attacking-sided, even though the numbers have evened out since. And for me personally, I want to see a bit more panache here from Empire. You said before the gusto was missing from other teams. Well, I want to see the gusto from Empire now. They're not going to be stalled out by time and having to execute. They're the ones imposing that time criticalness.
It's kind of weird when you think about it, because For Vitality, they've really drawn it out on the defense, but have kind of tried to step the pace up on attack, whereas Empire have been the reverse, kind of default at defense, let them get to the site, it's not really a problem, and then they've been really slow on the attack. So you're kind of seeing polar opposites in styles here coming out from both teams, dare I say. But let's see how the attack downstairs goes. There is no big extended hold upstairs with the mute like we saw coming out of Vitality, despite a near identical setup in terms of operator lineup.
Well, Vitality makes a very swift move on in, get all of those hatches opened up. They've got a Thermite to play with. They've got Cactus on the ace as well. No Hibana, even though it hasn't been banned this Playday, but that's A-okay because you have so much to work with. Those hatches weren't impeded by those Electric Claws because Kaid was banned, and you've only got the Mute Jammers to really play with here. Interesting that Empire doesn't also employ a Bandit a lot of the time. They almost always exclusively go to Mute. Doesn't matter the map, so that's interesting as well. I'm not sure if that's just comfort, but nevertheless, they're not going to do a kitchen push here. Empire favored the kitchen push. Looks like they might want to do a blue Moto pinch maybe, and this C4, it'll either play the difference maker for main stairs, or it could, given it's open up sideways, over towards Moto.
I was going to say P4's been watching a bit too much of Train Hard from last week and seeing what Chaotis was doing from inside of Moto, trying to take the inspiration but gets put in the dirt himself pretty quickly. Grenade out of Rise does come out, and hey, that's what you want. Some good frag kills coming through onto Dan, puts him in the dirt. Shinka's taking up the old spot and is now looking to push forward, but that Surya Gate is back online. Now they've got to start thinking about pushing on through. What utility have they got? The answer, it doesn't matter apparently, because Always is bringing it down to a 3 versus 3. Still 35 seconds to play, so there is something to use here, some time for adaptation or change coming out of the side of Vitality. A 3 versus 2 as Bibu picks up another, but at this point you've got a low HP player in Rise staring down a Surya Gate. He needs to burn through that. Bibu finds a second one, as Always peeks him, maybe not quite the play, into a 1 versus 3. Can Shepard hold on for long enough? Has got to know that Bibu is still here. He can't peek at this moment, I don't think, inside of Church. He might even try and just go for it. He is going to try. Oh, goes for the spray, but doesn't put Rise down. Does get Bibu, but Cactus finishes it off. Very close and a couple of pixels down. That could have been an Empire win, but no, Vitality go 5 and 3.
What a shame. The SMG-11, there are not a lot of bullets to play with there. And when you're a support or a support flex player, you've got to be very, very aware of conserving that ammunition. When you're in a 1vx position, you cannot do very much with the SMG in long range. You're going to get 1, max 2 kills out of that one. And well, that's why it ends in that particular scenario. But we're having a quick little timeout. And I believe this is for Empire, as you can imagine. Unfortunately, they weren't putting the rounds on the boards they wanted. And now it goes the direction of the person who called the timeout.
It did do that before. See, I actually raised this when we were doing APAC, right? Because the countdown was in orange. And I was like, yeah, but the background of APAC's also orange. Like, stick a little tag above the team name saying, oh, tactical timeout. What they've done is given it a lovely sheen effect. I love it. Just small little details.
Beautiful.
I do love it. You see that is Empires. You only get about 30 seconds. It's like Countdown, right? We could sit here with the Countdown music playing out at the same time. I don't know if you know what Countdown is,
Elevator music. I'm
assuming that means you don't know what Countdown is.
No, I prefer the elevator music to whatever you're probably going to pull out some UK massive show that no one else resonates with. So
No. This is what, to be fair, I should probably watch. I was about to burn myself here, but boomers watch it in the UK. Yes, I don't watch it. I don't know why I don't. Maybe I should to really fit with the program. But it's like you have to make a word. It's like a word jump where you get a bunch of letters. You have like 30 seconds, and there's a really telling
countdown.
Yeah, exactly.
I know it.
You do know it.
I'm a boomer too. I do know it.
Welcome, Jess. We'll have some great times in Paris watching Countdown together in the evenings after a show. I can't wait. I hope the sarcasm was dripping from my voice there. But let's go into round number 9. Vitality currently at 5 and 3 and are looking like Rogue after a poor performance from last week to potentially bring it back to a win and reignite their chance to get towards the top 4. I keep on saying it, but as of next week, we go into 3 play days in 7 days. If you are on form today after having a poor last week, I think you got a pretty good chance of picking up a win or 2 in the next coming weeks.
Absolutely. And well, we'll see the DMR come out for Scyther. He's not going to rock that Roni. Instead, he's going to have the DMR. A lot of players have been arguing as to whether the DMR is better, whether the Ronis are better, a little bit of composition to take on a Rooney. I think it's all personal preference. If you can hit your shots, take the DMR. It packs a punch. If you prefer to have those high fire rate and sharp headshot machines that you can get out of the Roni, sure, do that as well. What I'm interested in now, is can Vitality keep the pace that they have been having on the defense? You know, you saw them taking the fight straight up to the attackers. Can they do that on their attack? Drones have been zooming out. They've been getting hatches open really early. Things look positive, but I'm wondering whether or not that can stay because they're in a good position to prime themselves for a match point here.
Sorry, Jess, I was just taking notes there about what to play when I play Rooney, and I can confirm I cannot hit anything, therefore I'll be playing with the Rooney. Thank you very much.
There you go. You're very welcome. Make sure you have the angled grip, though. It has no recoil, so you won't struggle with that. No worries.
Excellent. Thank you. This is why we have you on the show, right? This is why you get a coach involved, because they can tell you what guns to use. I just click and point aheads, dude, and hope people die. It doesn't always work. Actually, doesn't always. Very rarely works. We'll play on that. Let's go and see what the pros can do. They're much better with the gun than I am. I guarantee you of that much. One thing that I've always loved, and I think it was a conversation about a year ago rather than like now, but Capital and Zofia together, how much utility do you want stacked on two operators? Between them both, number of concussion rounds, firebolts, smokes, impacts, claymores, hard breach. They do so much. I love it. And go to boot as well. They've got pretty decent guns on them. They are operators that when you have them in conjunction with each other can do so much damage, both on the execute and on the utility clear. And you can already see the fire come crashing through as Blue is forced to clear. P4's in. A man's running into him. They have no idea where. He's right behind you, buddy. What's going on? Shepard does put him in the dirt, but he's trading back out. P4 is out there. Pants down, Jess. He's got into a 4 versus 1. I don't think Empire bring this one back, even with 60 seconds to play. Cactus is going to close it out. Woo! I love the craziness of it all.
Woo! Sheesh! My goodness! P4 said, "This is my playground, get out!" He just ran on in and absolutely decimated the side of Team Empire. They didn't even know what had hit him. It wasn't even until the mute turned around and went, you're not a teammate. I guess I better shoot. I was shocked. And you know what shocked me the most? Is that Team Empire probably didn't expect it because they had set up for the long game and Vitality said, "Stuff your long game, I want insight," and I want insight just after the halfway mark. You know what? If I ever see Team Empire get to the site in that timing, I will buy you 5 beers, Des, because it doesn't look like Team Empire can ever replicate the attack we just saw there from Vitality. I would be surprised if Vitality even walk away with 1 point, or rather Empire walk away with 1 point against the Vitality this fierce.
Well, I guess Jess is never buying me 5 beers then. That's a bit sad. However,
you're not getting 5 beers.
I'm not getting 5 beers, Jess. I've accepted that now. I've resigned myself to my fate. There is never going to be any beers coming from the GOAT. Anyway, here's a replay of how that one shaped up. The distraction of the Zofia and the Capital coming in. They just had no idea. I think slightly unlucky that Scyther turned away when he did, because when he turned away was P4's point of entry. He walks in and gets 3. And I think at this point, Shepard still had no idea that he'd ran into the room. You must imagine how chaotic the comms are going, right? Oh my God, Capital's coming, Zofia's coming. 2 else are dead. What's going on? Oh my God, it's in front of my face. And before you know it, he actually does die. But by then, the damage is done. P4's got a 3K. He's won the round for his team. That's good, I suppose, thriving in chaos coming out of Vitality. 6 and 3. 1 more round, and they take all 3 points. They elevate themselves into 4th place, as the signs at the top right of your screen are telling you right now. What a glow up that would be after last week.
You know what? It's actually hilarious because I agree with you. The best phrase for it is glow up. That's what I feel about Vitality. I said their fundamentals were there and they need to be more consistent. They've dropped a few really crucial rounds. Let's not get this wrong. This could have been a much bigger scoreline right now here for Vitality than 6-3. If they win this 7-3, I actually think if they had won those rounds, which should have been more consistent, they would have won 7-1. I think there were 2 rounds they dropped unnecessarily. That's a huge scoreline against a team like Team Empire. It's not like we're talking about old Rogue last stage. We're talking about Team Empire that usually sits middle pack. They won the damn major, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a team that can't do great things. I don't know what to say. Vitality looking hot.
I'm cursing teams left, right, and center, it feels like today so far, because I said at the start, Empire are looking better. Like, they're finally starting to find some form. Yes, they've lost. They come up against BDS. Everyone kind of expects to lose against BDS, but Joystick was starting to find form. Today, it's been mainly down to Shepard, and always when you look across the scoreline and see some kills coming in, it's just not been the Empire that we've started to see signs of in the last couple of weeks. Again, still a team that are trying to find that identity. Grenade comes singing over. There is still going to be an ADS there, but Rise walks straight into the barrel of Down. He puts him in the dirt. 5 versus 4. It looks like Empire is kind of taking a leaf out of the books of Vitality here with his defense, always trying to play out in a pushed off hold away from the site and saying, if you guys want to come for us, well, you best be ready to eat some lead, and eat lead they will. P4 almost put in the dirt, but there's already 2 men down. They could back away from here and be happy, but they're saying, why bother? We can kill them here and now. 3 are dead. Dan doing absolute work at the top of red, and with 2 men left alive, I don't see how Vitality bring this all the way back. It's a triple kill for Dan at the top of red. Vitality maybe not around to remember. We can park this one under the rug and just say, forget it ever happened. Let's focus on the happy memories, because Empire, by the looks of it, are about to bring this up to 6 and 4 with a flawless round in the offsite hold.
I said earlier on in this matchup, I do the short-term caster curses, you do the medium to long-term. Okay? And that's why they won that round flawlessly, because I caster cursed Team Vitality. My apologies, guys. You can message me later and absolutely rip me about it. That's fine. But for now, that was a round where the linchpin was your man, Dan. Dan the man, I'm going to call him. He was the complete power position on that hold. And I think for Vitality, even if they hadn't pushed that to begin with, they still had a problem. There's still multiple crossfires from Cash over towards the default plant, or rather over towards Gym window, and that's an area you've got to deal with. You can't just let it go. So for me, that missed grenade from Rise was the kicker. He has already hit so many grenades this match, so I'm absolutely not going to criticize him for missing that one out. I will say, however, pulling that last ADS all the way back in a position that might not always work, I mean, that's a risk Dan took, but it paid off. So great setup. Tiny little adaptations from both of these teams over towards those red stairs have meant entire rounds.
Oh, man. Well, it's chaotic. It's back and forth. There are arguably a couple of rounds on the board that neither team really should have on side, but they have got them, and that's what counts. Empire, 2 rounds you're now looking to hold out on this one. Could Dan pull off a miracle? Arguably not. But in one round where you have Dan doing things like that and getting 3 kills to himself at the top of red, the prior round you've got P4 charging into sight. I like that we're almost seeing Empire dragged into the chaos that Vitality is selling in this game. It makes for a highly entertaining game. I keep on saying, I can't think really of a single game this season that has been boring. I look back at last week and say, right, Rogue Vitality, absolute chaos, fine, but it was fun. It was good fun to watch, and every game is living up to expectation. I'm living for it, Jess.
Well, your hype gives me more hype, and I've loved Comp Siege since, God, I started playing Comp in 2017, and I was playing competitive FPS even before that, so I think I've been addicted for coming up almost 10 years now. It is a live, breathe, cry, sleep, everything FPS for me. And so these games with the new meta have really positioned that well in my mind, because I can enjoy a bit of tactical FPS, that's what Siege is, but I can also enjoy the storylines of these teams growing with the new meta, flourishing with the new meta. That's what Vitality is really showing me now. And the speed and I think the speed of Vitality is something that a lot of teams don't have at the moment, which is why you're seeing Empire struggle on their attack and Vitality to do quite well. And that's something that I want to see these other teams pick up on. Look over towards Vitality as an inspiration. They're doing good things.
Gotta say, just the same curse is back again. You got the Capitao, you got the Zofia. We already saw the chaos that they sowed in previous rounds. Is it going to be the same again? I always think back to when we used to see Capitao an awful lot. Again, the objective was, can we burn out what's going on Catwalk? And they try and go for the burn. He's forced across enough that Bibu can peek at the same time from the breach and catch him out. That's all too clinical and clean. If Rise had died, different story, but he didn't. Those smokes stay alive and can be used to the execute if required. There we go.
Rise has been the ultimate flex frag player, whether it's using his frags on the sledge or whether now that he's adapted to take those flames to better utilize it onto the rafters. I mean, he is the player that has the game sense and the experience you want in a player, and it's coming out to shine. Empire are trying to respond with aggression here. That's why you're seeing these jump outs. That's why you're seeing them all floating over towards construction. They've lost a lot of control over towards that garage area, so instead they want to go below. They're thinking about the flanks, but there's already preset drones there, of course. They're not just good with utility, they're good with their intel.
They are up at a point where they're thinking about the execute with 40 seconds to play. It's quite a while, and here we go. It's going to be a default plan coming in, but guess what? A face full of smoke. I haven't seen that one before. Always tries to run below, I believe, to go for the C4, but gets shut down by Shinka, who was covering inside a stock. Good spot to be in, and Joystick is looking to try and go for some contest. I don't think it's going to happen. It's a 5 versus 2. Another smoke comes out. C4's in place, does get one, and I think this is going to be it, Jess. It's a 1 versus 3. Shepard with nothing but a dream to keep him going here against Vitality. They're going for a plant once again. There's no C4. He's got to go aggressive. Surely it's covered. Swings out on the hack. Actually gets him as well. No, the last guy. And Shepard brought it back. No! Touched it for Empire with a knife and a kill. What a drive-by onto the balcony. Keeps them in it. 6 and 5. We keep speaking about nicked rounds. Empire have gone and done it again.
No, I refuse. I refuse to believe this man just drive by. The man on platform with an SMG-11 fell into the trap of having no ammunition again, but this time he's in melee range. Oh, my heart. Oh, God. Oh, Des, what do I do? Woo, sheesh. My goodness.
This season is testing my heart.
How do you still have a voice after the past 2 Playdays?
And the temperature in my room. Like, I'm honestly, I've got lights turned off. It's getting that warm. And I'm now just like, someone help. it's too much. This is why I need a haircut. The mullet needs to go. I can't do it. I'm having a drink. You talk. You just talk. Yeah. Come on.
I just want to giggle in absolute fantasticalness over what just happened in that round. Thank you for the replay. Rather than me talking, let's just see exactly how this round was clutched out. It was a 2v4 turning into a 1v3 for Shepard, who already was on 11 kills. And then the knife, quad kill, no seconds left. Even if they had have taken the engagement, I mean, I still think at that range, shotgun would have won out absolutely. So at the end of the day, the clutch meister of Shepard comes to save the day, but does it propel us into an overtime, at least securing Empire 1 point and me owing Des 5 beers? Well, that might be very possible.
Oh, I mean, we both sat there and said, I'm not getting 5 beers, and we both honestly, we need to stop talking. We're just cursing the living death out of this at this point, is the way it's starting to feel. Oh, well, let's see. At this point, I really don't know what to call. Overtime could be a thing. Rise finds Dan to kick things off, because why not 30 seconds into the round? It does start things off in slightly emphatic fashion. We're back to having the sledge on side in this case as well, not the Capitals we've seen previously. And looks like Scyther looking to cause some trouble on the alibi. Another pick that we don't see get picked up all that often. Joystick almost put in the dirt. You spoke about seeing a castle, Jess. Guess what? You're seeing one.
Well, the castle's going to do not very much when the guns of Vitality are absolutely ripping through the Empire players. They're trying to fight fire with fire. There is so much momentum on the side of Vitality. Even after losing that 1v3 clutch with 0 seconds left at the end, that is something that should stint your momentum, your mentality, and it hasn't. If anything, it's lit a fire underneath Vitality, and they're saying, this is enough. We've given you enough rounds. We're done with this. We're coming in hot. We're coming in strong. And that's why you're seeing the 5v3. Make it a 5v2 for the Trouble Des. And all of a sudden, I get to keep my money and beers unless I have just last second cursed it.
Oh, my word. It's going to come down to some kind of craziness in this final round. Shepard's looking the same. Boys, do I really have to do this again? Sadly, buddy, yes is most likely the answer, unless Joystick can weigh in with a couple of kills of his own. 5 versus 2, a minute and 15 to play. I will say this now, and I hope I don't curse it. This is one of those rounds that you look at and go, there is 0 chance the attacking team lose, unless there's some kind of magic that gets pulled out by Joystick and Shepard, 2 players that are probably as old as the game itself. They find one. P4 is already down. The blue pins come through. They make it a second. Now Shepard has got to ace clutch to take it through to overtime. The plant is going down. Rise, 12 kills to his name. Shepard sees one at range. Can't finish him off. It's only a UMP. Gets shot by Bibu down the long corridor. Vitality will close it out at 7 and 5. But my God, did they just take us on a magical carpet ride to get us to the end.
You can see Bibu screaming to his team right now. That is a win they needed. Extra points on the board. And did you say that's a top 4 position for these boys who were highly criticized when they come zooming into this first stage here of this season, well, I think that's going to shut the haters right up. This French team showing they are here to play, and that might mean there are at least 2 French lineups in the top 4 if you include BDS in there, depending on their performance today. Nevertheless, that's a Vitality win and a sore loss there for VP, who's going to be sitting back going, that was something VP, Team Empire. I'm just keep thinking about VP last game. Excuse me.
We're confused. K's, G's, V's, everything's just slipping apart. My hair's come out of my headband. I can't keep it in there anymore because of how that game was going. That was just...
You look so young.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's the long hair, I promise. Honestly, one of the most insane games of Siege I think I've ever seen. I hope we get to see more games like that. Fair play to both teams for an incredibly entertaining game for the viewers, no doubt, as well. Let's go to the desk and see just how much fun they had with that matchup.
It was indeed a ton of fun